Hi guys, it's Katie Jo with the Soil Bar here. Today I'm going to be repotting this Monstera Adansonii that a customer has dropped off, and I'm going to be showing you the process. And because this plant just hasn't ever really been thriving, the customer said, and it's got a little tiny bit of yellowing on the tips of the leaves on a few of them. So I'm going to unpot this, take a look at this, diagnose it with the problem, which I can already kind of guess what it is, and then we're going to repot it. So let's go ahead and start. First of all, like I said, this is a Monstera Adansonii. It has beautiful fenestrations, but the customer said it just hasn't grown. It's looked about the same, even declined a little bit. Now, when I look at the substrate, if you can even call it substrate, it's very dark. I don't see much in terms of amendments in there. And these are epiphytic plants, meaning they grow on another thing, like a tree generally. So it does not want something dense like this. It needs to be loose and airy, and then as it grows, ideally you could even put a moss pull on it, and that's really going to help those leaves get nice and big and flourish. So let's go ahead and unpot this, and then this is actually the beautiful mix that we make. It's called our chunky mix. This is great for aeroids and especially for Monstera and other epiphytes. You see how the difference between those two colors? Huge. I'll talk about more of what's in here in just a minute. But first, let's take a look and see what the problem is. You're going to want to have a container when you do this, so because I always want to isolate the potting mix and not get it contaminated with any other soil, because this stuff is not good stuff. Yep, so it is dark all the way through with the potting soil. It's very wet, and that is why the plant is just not happy. So I'm just gently kind of taking it apart. Basically, we've got several plants in here that were all potted in the same pot. Here's the root system. Yeah, and these roots really aren't that substantial, considering if you want more than 2 leaves on something, you're going to have a better mix that has the right nutrients, but most importantly, isn't overly dense. I love this. This is a perfect example of how they grow. See how it just kind of goes along this vine, and then there are these little roots here? That is because in nature, this plant will root itself possibly in the ground, or not even. Some of them are completely freestanding, not freestanding, but they're on trees. But as these grow, then those will begin to kind of wrap around that tree and really innervate into it to hold it in place. And it'll just continue to climb up and up and up that tree. And like in the rainforest, it rains, it gets plenty of water, and even some stuck in the bark of the surrounding tree, so it's able to soak up those nutrients, but lots of oxygen exchange, and all of the excess water washes away and down the tree. So basically this soil that it's in is the opposite of that. So what I'm going to do here is I have another empty container. I'm just going to place these gently in here while I prepare the new pot. Yeah, this little tiny root system. You want to allow the plant also to dry out a little bit before you repot it. If it's really, really saturated, I know there's only so much you can do, because if the soil's poor, you want to get it out of there as quickly as possible, and it's not going to dry out very well. In that case, just take it out of the nursery pot, let it sit and dry out a little bit, because that way it'll be easier for the soil to fall off. This is still pretty moist because it's not very well draining, but it's dry enough that it's falling off. So there is our Monstera, soil-free. And this garbage, let's see what's in here. Aha. So these little white things, you might think that they're perlite, but see how I squish them? They release some liquid. So these are for prolonged periods of, like say when they're shipping, or if you have somebody who doesn't remember to water, they're like little fluid-filled sacs. So like they pop like pimples. Ugh. So other than that, there literally are no aeration or amendments that promote oxygen exchange in here. So this is garbage. donezo. Next thing I'm going to do, some people do this, some people don't. I like to, just because I want this plant to have absolute, like pretty much guaranteed success, as long as you still care for the plant. Obviously it's a living thing. But I am going to spray with All Seasons spray oil. Now this works for horticultural, it's basically it's a horticultural spray oil. So, and it is even certified, it's for organic gardening. So basically the active, if you call it active ingredient, is mineral oil in here. So the plants actually suffocate. So it's going to kill all stages of insects too, it says. So scale, which is that stuff that kind of looks almost like powder, spider mites, eggs, and it kills them by smothering them. And I don't feel bad for them. I'm sorry. I'm an animal person, but I'm not. If you're messing with my plants, no. And upon inspecting this, I don't see anything that I would say is necessarily a bug, but I'm still just going to very, very gently here just spray it down. Make sure you're getting the undersides of the foliage as well. Not too much. And I'm not even going to necessarily rinse the roots because, like I said, I think this is just an aeration problem. So now I'm going to take a look at this plant here. This guy, this has a, the purpose of this is non-existent, so I'm just going to cut it back a little bit. It didn't have a leaf on it, so all it's doing is just draining. So this guy here, this is a tough call. Should I take this one off or not? It does have some new growth up here on the top, so I'm going to say yes. I don't think we're going to miss it. Some people might not agree with me, but I just don't like looking at ugly leaves. This one's got a little tear in it, but I think we might be able to just trim it, and I don't think that'll be that noticeable. Especially we know that it's not diseased or anything. This one looks pretty healthy, so I'm going to keep that one. And then this is the last one, and we've got one sad looking vine. Oh no, see, this one's definitely going to go. That one's on its way out, I can tell. And it's like, I think I'm going to try just trimming this one. And maybe we'll put it at the center of the pot so you won't really see it as much. But I kind of cut it in the shape of a leaf. Here's one with a little bit of yellow too. Now, after you do this, if you notice that yellow is continuing to progress up and up the leaf, that means that it's dying. It has no chance. You can cut it off. But it should hopefully just kind of brown off a little bit at the edge if this is an otherwise healthy leaf. And then it'll be fine. Spraying a little more of the mineral oil on here. It's a mineral oil solution. And basically, this time it's just like to get the excess dirt off. Alrighty, so I'm taking the ones that I cut off, and I'm just making sure everything is in its own place. I don't want to contaminate, and I actually take all these and they go in my compost bin. Alrighty, so now the fun part. And the next thing you're going to do is select your pot size. I think I'm just actually going to use the same pot because we weren't looking at so much of a outgrowing its pot situation, more of just a poor soil situation. Now that it's going to be in new soil though, once you start seeing those roots come out the bottom, that means it's time to repot. You're going to want to go up 1 to 2 inches in pot size. So before I make that final determination though, if I am going to use this pot, I'm just going to kind of place these in here, see how it looks. Yep, and this actually fills out the pot nicely. I might take one of the littler guys and pot that up. I just like to do this for customers sometimes, you know, because then you get to go home with 2 plants that will grow into pretty substantial, lovely plants. And then because I'm guessing she might eventually want to do a moss pole in the back of here, I'm going to basically point the direction of these longer ones towards one certain spot, if that makes sense. So that once it's ready for a pole, it'll easily just you can start to train it to go up the pole. If you want it in a hanging basket, then I would do this a little differently. I'd have them go in all different directions so that it would kind of spill out and over the sides. So you know what, if you can see what I'm kind of saying here, I've got them all kind of going this way. And then maybe this guy is kind of, it's going to be in a pot by itself. I want it to be really perfect looking without any imperfections of the leaves because you're going to notice it if it's on its own. So this one doesn't have any bad guys on it. So I'm going to pot this guy up separately. And how I figure out what size pot I want for it, it's just kind of a guess. I'm gonna see. This is actually a little bit too shallow, I think, because if I look at the root system, I put it in here. Yeah, this is gonna fill this out really fast, and you're gonna need to go up in pot size. So, okay, what else do we have? I love terracotta. Now, terracotta is going to dry out a lot faster. So, for the purpose of this this person who's I'm doing this for, I'm not going to use a separate terracotta pot. I'm not going to waste time in the video getting a same size pot that's not terracotta. So we'll just put that to the side for now. All right, last and final step, guys. This is the fun part. So now we're going to repot this in the soil bar chunky mix substrate. Look at how beautiful that looks. So this, as you can see, is a completely different looking grow media. It's got leca in it, which is expanded clay. This is our own kind of blend. It has some cocoa core chunks, or people call them cocoa chips, and they act like, think of them just like a little sponge. See how I'm compressing that? This is going to hold a lot of water, but once it's fully saturated, the rest of the water is going to drain away from the plant. Just like how I explained earlier about how they are in nature, like they'll soak up water, even the barks around on the tree that the plant is attached to will soak up some water, and then the rest of it is going to flow away. So what else is going to help that stuff flow away are chunky perlite and pumice. I've also got some extra cocoa core in here, charcoal, and then 8 months of slow release plant food and vermicompost, or some people call it worm castings. So that's going to provide that natural, nutritious support. So here we go. It also just looks pretty. So I'm going to start by putting a little bit in the bottom of the pot, just so that these initial roots aren't touching the bottom of the pot. And then I'm just going to kind of place it in here, holding it at the height that I want the plant to be at, ultimately. And then, or even a little bit lower, because we can always pull the plant upward a little bit. And then I'm just going around the sides, making sure I'm getting all the sides. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect, because I'll show you in a second here what we're going to do, which is kind of, I'm pressing it down with my fingers slightly. You don't want to have air pockets in here. You don't want to press it down really firm, because you can damage the root system, but you want to just give it a little bit of a tap and a press. And then I'm going in between each of the individual quote-unquote plants here and pressing it down. Now this guy is going to be a little wobblier for a bit because it's in such a loose, chunky substrate. You can't just mash down something that's this well aerated and it's going to hold it in place, which is what you don't want that. But it is going to look kind of floppy in here for a bit. But just set it down and let it kind of rest and be. Okay. And I just want to make sure that it's got good spacing here, so that all of the leaves have the chance to get the soil that they want, or I mean the light. All right, and that is it, guys. Here we go. Here is the finished repotted plant. It still looks about the same as far as the plant goes. We did trim it and treat it. The soil is a whole lot prettier though. And this plant is going to get gorgeous very quickly. We're coming into spring too, which is the growing season. And this plant is just right now like, oh my God, it's like it's happy hour. It's always happy hour at the soil bar. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. This is a relatively new channel. I have not been the best with YouTube in the past, so I'm really trying, and I'm trying to make content that I think people are going to enjoy, and it's going to really help your houseplant game. And I mean, that's ultimately my goal, right? It's a better, greener, happier, planty community. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you till next time, or we'll see you next time.